Hi folks, welcome to part 2 of our morning webcam. We've wandered along from the Swindon Lagoons site up here to, well, this is actually Rivermead flood storage area, and this is a part of a project that Swindon Borough Council and Wiltshire Wildlife Trust are delivering over the next 3 years. This is part of the Forest Meadows project, and that Forest Meadows project is looking to enhance meadows, grasslands and associated habitats associated with sort of woodland network, etc. And this is Rivermead, and this little stream that's down here, can't see it at the moment, but behind us it's much narrower. It is in flood at the moment after all the rain we've been having, but it's just a straightened channel. And recently we've had worked with our water team and our contractors, and although it's in flood at the moment, you can't see it all, you can see this is much wider. Leveled the edges of this, we've put some stages into that, different vegetation and different growth. We've opened up the light into here. We've created an area where we can put a path along so people can actually walk along and see the stream there. And we've got a significant amount of tree planting that we can do in this whole area through here. Alongside all of that, these grassy areas, these areas down here, we can look to incorporate wildflowers. So this in here would be much more wetland wildflowers, but as we walk along or on other areas of the site, which you can't particularly see, but over the back here there's a big area of grassland that we can enhance and get more and more wildflowers in there for pollinators and things like that. And this project here is all being funded by Network Rail. It's a project called the Greater Western Programme. It's delivered by Network Rail when they were putting through the electrification of the Great Western Line. They've given grants to people up and down that line to do work to enhance biodiversity up and down through, and Swindon Borough Council and the Wildlife Trust are delivering that for them in Swindon. Seeing a very small snapshot of here, but we're also working at Malden Hill Country Park as well. Again, part of this green corridor that runs all the way through this area. Should we walk down and have a look at some of the other bits and pieces that we're doing here? A bit muddy. We have lots of those. But another group that I really do need to mention here are the Wild Wellbeing Group. Wildlife Trust run a number of wellbeing sort of groups across the county, and that Swindon Wild Wellbeing Group is really, really active here and at Malden Hill, doing lots and lots of bits and pieces. So last week we were creating dead hedges as habitat. Building bird boxes and bat boxes, and we've put those up into the woodlands, etc. And more work this winter. So this is part of the big cycle routes that come through Swindon. Part of National Cycle Route 45, really well used by all sorts of commuters, walkers, dog walkers, people struggling to work, runners, really busy at various times of the day, except for this typical hour rain. Just started filming, the rain's just about to start. just step into here a second. All along the edge of the cycle track, which, as I say, is a really, really busy route. We have a number of trees which are growing. A huge proportion of these trees are ash trees, like this one. And these trees, they're identified, they all have very early signs of ash dieback on them. And there's a real dilemma for the Wildlife Trust for trees and tree planting everywhere. And obviously at the moment, you know, there's a big clamour to get as many trees planted into the ground, and different initiatives, including Swindon Borough and others. Big tree planting schemes linked up with other habitats, creating major ecological restoration across the country. And it is a real dilemma. But all of these trees and these sort of scalloped areas, about 30 metres long, about 15 metres deep into them, if we allow the ash dieback to just continue within these trees, they get a secondary infection, they become very weak and structurally unsound, and they're likely to just collapse without warning. So there's a real health and safety dilemma. So whilst we'd like to leave as many ash trees as we possibly can in the countryside and in Swindon, because we want to find those that are resilient and resistant to this disease, and there's no point in felling every single one of them, in certain situations like this, we need to preemptively start to think about taking them down. So we've gone through all the consenting periods and gone through consultations, and as I say, we've got 2 or 3 areas along here where we're going to take out sort of areas about 15 metres deep within sort of felling distance of the path, so that anything that falls isn't going to touch the path. But we'll leave things like these wonderful oaks, which are being a bit shaded out. The ash grows really quickly. There aren't very many of them in this woodland. Most of this is actually ash plantation, but there are some oak, some field maple, a few poplars and bits and pieces like that. Those will be left because they form the structure. And then underneath this, instead of planting one single species like ash, we can plant lots and lots of different native broadleaf species. Things like alder, which really like these damp conditions. Field maple and oak, which grow really well here. But we can also include a lot of the scrubby species, things like spindle, wayfaring tree, blackthorn, thorns, hazel, to give much more of a variation in this, so that we actually attract in more and more wildlife as well. So whilst, yeah, as I say, it's a dilemma, nobody wants to be cutting down mature trees if we can help it. But, you know, we do need to think about how we do this to maintain health and safety and to enhance biodiversity, and that's one of the projects that we'll be delivering here this winter.
Excellent.
I think you can just see one of our bat boxes that we've erected up in the woodland. So this was the volunteers who've been putting these up, and we've got some 30 or so dotted around this woodland here that we'll be monitoring as well. That is an important aspect, is monitoring. So we're doing all of this work. We want to know that it's actually working. So, whereas at places like the Lagoons we have permanent ringing sites, here you can just see a white post in there that we put up the other day. It's just temporary in there, but it marks the centre of a sort of permanent plot. And we have sort of 500 metre squares of all the trees, all vegetation underneath it, and we're recording all of that, so that in the future we can repeat that and see what changes we've actually made and what changes are happening within the woodland, within the area, so that we can say that something's happened and we've done something better here. Hopefully. So as we're walking along, we've come to the National Cycle Route 45 here, sometimes known as the Great Western Flyer. And on this side, all of this here is West Swindon Parish Council, who are the owners and managers of this land, and we're working with them to deliver this. On the other side is the Rivermead Nature Reserve. That is again similar to the Swindon Lagoons, an area that Wiltshire Wildlife Trust manage under licence as a nature reserve. I think the best thing to do is to let Gordon take you further.
Over to you,
Gordon's
Gordon.
the reserve warden here.
Yes, so this is basically this area here we've got fenced off, called it our wildlife area, because it was open, and on the other part of Rivermead, on the other side of the cycle back here, we had quite a patch where there were water bowls, and the dog walkers used to disturb them. So we decided to fence this area off and call it a wildlife area, and it's improved the area greatly. The tree mound that you see in the background, that was formed from the excavation of the basin, the river basin that we'll see going over the bridge, and that was planted by the council. We've started thinning out about 5-6 years ago. Because it was basically planted and then not thinned out, and so like Neil said, that's prevalent with elm as there again, and we're now actually making space for the understory. We planted loads of bluebells and primrose and that there to try and encourage them as well. Had a good show last year. With houndstone, which was an unusual plant, we found that was there as well. So, but again, we've got the problem with elm. We've got the problem of ash next to the cycle path, causing health and safety. So we've got to be aware of that here. In fact, actually, we had one earlier in the year come over.
Sorry, can I just say, this is all these spoil pits. This is from the river restoration that we've done. So whilst it looks unsightly at the moment, again, all of this will be seeded. So a lot of this will be seeded with a woodland edge wildflower mix. Plants like hedge of griminy and hedge woundwort, plants that will really take to that sort of woodland edge environment and provide lots of colour and opportunities for these things.
And since we've been thinning the trees out on the tree mound, it's made the understory really beneficial. It was very barren when we took it over, and now there's a lot of plants coming up. I won't tell you the colloquial names that I have called the enclosures here, because I think Neil will frown. But, we've got one here that we've enclosed here, because that had bluebells, and we had garlic as well, wild garlic in there, and so we thought we'd close that off. We grade this to stop people going in, continuing the barrier. But again, we're doing it in succession as well. We'll probably clear an area, then leave it. We've got a little hazel pot, we call it hazel creek here. Planted it about sort of 4 years, 5 years ago, and that's become beneficial now for hedge laying. You can see basically we've got to do this hedge now because the breaking's through. So we'll probably coppice this hazel and redo this fence. But we're now coming up to the meadow. We call it the north and the south meadow. Rivermead was done in 2 phases. I'll quickly go through that when we get to Meadow, and we can see the River Ray there. So that's the northern meadow there, as you can see. We like to try and mow this every year, but with the COVID restrictions, we haven't been able to do this. And you can see actually that it's tended to swell now. So it's really a good area for. We've got a variety of wetland flowers here, and quite a good show. So as you can see, the river's there. They re-engineered the river about sort of 9 years ago to put the bends in. It was canalised by the sewage works, and they put bends in and put riffles so that you got the 2 sort of water flows, different water flows.
So what we did was, this was sort of a phase to reconnect this to the floodplain, and we've been straightened on building sort of railways, bits and pieces, industrial sort of revolution through Swindon. There were a series of meanders, but those meanders were on the other side, and what's now the old sewage works. So they've taken those meanders and they've just literally mirror imaged them onto this side. And we met, Gordon mentioned that some of the tree mound was built from the spoil, so we've scraped a lot of the soil back from here, and that's gone round the back of the tree mound, and that creates the sort of mound that is now the wildlife refuge over there. And if you look behind us,
This is a point in showing the flood storage area, basically, because that's why it's there.
and this is exact perfect reason why, you know, floodplains and these meadows next to rivers are so important. This wet woodland like this, it soaks up so much of this. It stops it from just going through that canal down further stream and just flooding elsewhere. This holds the water back, reduces that flow, allows it to flow down naturally much slower. And we're looking more and more at these natural solutions around the country of how we can deliver this and how we can sort of alleviate some of the pressures of climate change and increasing flood opportunities and things like that. And of course it's also helpful for the ecological crisis. You know, this wet woodland, these wet floodplain meadows, they're just marvellous places for a host of different wildlife.
There's a number of scrapes in here as well. We've got one here and then a large one at the end that provides different habitats as well. So you have to be careful because the site is. Because we've been restricted in our maintenance, unfortunately there was a plan to pollard this crack willow, but as you can see, the floods have taken their toll. So this is the River Ray, again in flood. But as Neil said, it went in a straight line. Where the poplars are down there, it went basically straight down there. So, and this area on the left is where you see the tree, the mound on the left. That was a sewer that was run from Wiltshire into the sewage works, and Thames Water made a bund over it and replanted it. So there's some hedge there. We've started now maintaining this at last, so we will go down in stages, and the southern meadow is down there, very similar to the northern meadow. So a number of sort of different habitats, which is quite useful.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay.